forget.
Hello, Facebook family. Hello, YouTube family. This is Reverend Dr. John W. Wilson III bringing you the Sunday School lesson for Sunday, October 20th. The title of the lesson is Humble Faith. It comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 7, 1 through 10. As you're going through this lesson with me, if you feel like it's a blessing for you, please hit the like button. If you think someone else that may benefit from it, please hit the share button. And if you're on YouTube, if you like to get notifications of each week's lesson when they're ready, just hit the subscribe button. Thank you for joining me on this week's Sunday School lesson. When I looked at this lesson, I read it last week, and I read it through, and I said, okay, it's not a lot there. Then I read it again. And I said, it's more there. It's more than I thought. And then I began to do my typical study. I read the passage. As I'm reading the passage, I looked at the context. I looked at what happened before, leading up into the passage. I looked at key words in the passage. And I started visualizing what this centurion was going through, or what Jesus was doing. And I started putting myself in the first century, imagining how the centurion must have felt, imagining what Jesus, how he must have felt. And I began to paint a good picture for me. And I said, man, this passage has a lot more to it than at first looking at it. It tells us a lot about the faith of the centurion. It tells us what type of faith pleases God. And then the application is, what kind of faith do we have? Do we have humble faith? And do our faith, does it please God? So in this passage, I want you to go along with me. It's a lot here, and it touched my soul. I'm blessed by having studied it, and I hope you'll receive the blessing that I received through this gospel passage. So let's look at what's happening. Jesus says after he had finished all these sayings, he had just preached a sermon. He talked about not judging one another. He talked about the tree and its fruit. He talks about build your house on this rock. And he had just preached a sermon. And the Bible says after he finished these sayings, these words of wisdom, these sermons in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum, which is a city in northern Israel, which is not far away. It's a fishing village. It's not too far from the Sea of Galilee, so he didn't travel far. And so when he entered that city, it says, now a centurion had a servant who was sick and was at the point of death. A parallel passage to this, if you want to get another point of view, will be Matthew chapter 8, beginning in verse 5, all the way up to verse 13. Matthew is a little bit of a shorter version. It takes it from as if the centurion himself approached Jesus, and that's okay. You may say this is a contradiction because in our passage, representatives of the centurion approached Jesus. Well, in that day and time, if a representative or a messenger came to you or represented you, then it was as if you were doing it yourself. So they both are in complete alignment. Matthew just summarizes a little bit, abbreviates it, whereas Luke gives a little bit more of an expanded detail of the passage of what actually happened word for word. As Matthew emphasizes the healing, Luke is going to emphasize the faith of the centurion. So that's the backdrop here. So we have a centurion who had a servant. Matthew says that this centurion is suffering, is terribly sick. He's paralyzed. Luke says that he was sick at the point of death. So we putting that together, this servant is in bad shape. This servant has a short time to live. This servant is in agony and in pain and is suffering greatly. So that's what we have. You may say, what's a centurion? A centurion was a Roman officer, a Gentile, who had a command over 100 soldiers. He had tremendous amount of authority. Those soldiers did exactly as he told them to do. He was paid 5 to 10 times as much as a regular soldier. A centurion was wealthy in the first century. He was a very wealthy man, very powerful man, a man with much authority, with at least 100 men under his authority. And so this slave who was sick, the Bible says in Luke, was highly valued by the centurion, meaning that he was blessed by him. He liked him. He was appreciated him, did not want to lose him, did not want him to die, loved him. I mean, he meant a lot to this centurion. And so it says, when the centurion heard about Jesus. So the good news, what does that say about Jesus? In that day, early on in Jesus' ministry, he was extremely popular, really throughout his ministry, extremely well known. He was known for his wise sayings, his teachings, his sermons. Also, he was known, what really got him very popular or well known was his miracles, supernatural miracles, feeding thousands of people, healing the lame, giving sight to the blind, things of that nature. And so not only did the poor people or the common folk hear about what Jesus was saying and doing, but Jesus, his sayings and doings reached the elite class. It crossed over from the Jewish people to the Gentile people. It crossed over from the poor people or the common people to the upper class people or to the well-to-do people. That's how popular Jesus was. That's how well known he was. So the centurion heard about him. People were talking about Jesus, and the centurion, when this servant got sick, he remembered what he had heard about Jesus, and he sent the elders of the Jews asking him to come and heal his servant. Now this tells us a lot. He sent the elders of the Jews, meaning this centurion, he didn't have authority over the Jews. He had authority over the soldiers, but he was friends or associated with or had close relationships or friendly relationships with the Jewish people, well enough to ask them to go and speak to Jesus on his behalf, and for them to out of friendship, to obey or to honor his request and do that. And that's what these elders did. Why did he choose the elders? Maybe because Jesus was a Jew and they were Jews, and he was a Gentile. Maybe he thought they would communicate better, or maybe he wanted to stay there at home with this slave that he valued much. And then the Bible says that he sent the elders asking him to come and heal his servant. And so it said that when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly. The Jews loved the centurion. They respected him. So they did the bidding for this centurion, and they pleaded with him, giving Jesus reasons on why he should come and heal this servant for the centurion. He says, he is worthy to have you do this for him. That's not the way you really come at Jesus. You don't say he is worthy to have you do this for him, because nobody's worthy, but they don't actually see Jesus in the way that they should see Jesus. It said, for he loves our nation, and he's the one who built us our synagogue. They say, I want you to come and heal this centurion's servant because he is worthy. Look at what he's done. He loves our nation, and he's built our synagogue. Now, one thing, if we know about Jesus, is that we cannot earn grace and mercy. And so I don't want you to think that Jesus responded or went with these elders because this man was worthy or because what he did for the Jewish people. He actually did it in spite of, out of compassion, out of his grace and mercy for this servant who is suffering, and for the centurion who is who has this highly valued servant. And so the Bible says that Jesus went with them. One thing I want to just talk about here is that this centurion was not a proselyte. Some people may believe that he's a proselyte. Some commentaries say he's a proselyte, meaning that he was a Gentile who converted to Judaism. And so that means he got circumcised. That means he bought into the Jewish faith. He participated in keeping the law, the rituals, the festivals, all those things he participated in. He was part of the family. Some people think he was a God-fearer, meaning that he kept the laws but did not participate in the festivals and the dietary laws and did not get circumcised. I tend to think that he was neither of one. In fact, I felt if he was one, then Matthew would have said it in chapter 8 and Luke would have said something to it in chapter 7, and they both don't mention it. It seems as though he was a friend of the Jews who loved them very much, who fellowshiped with them, who had good relations with them. And not every Gentile hated the Jews. Like in our race situation today, not every person of this color hates this person of this color. There are some who are just friendly with everybody and don't really look at color as other people may do. So this guy right here broke tradition and was friends with the Jews here. And then it says here, and Jesus went with them. Okay? Jesus went with them. And I like that because Jesus is going to a centurion to heal his servant. That's important. I'll touch on that a little bit later. It says, when he was not far from the house, as he was approaching the house, Centurion sent friends saying to him, Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof. What this centurion says through his friends contradicts what the elders told Jesus. The elders told Jesus that the centurion was worthy. And I love the centurion. He didn't know what they said, but undercuts it and says, Lord, I am not worthy. And what does that tell us? A lot of times we believe we're worthy for God's blessings because of what we have done. I sing in the choir. I am an usher. I preach. I teach. I do this and I do that. I've given this much money and I've given that much money. I have helped the church build this building. I have helped the church pave the parking lot. I have helped the church furnish the church with the pews. I have done all those things. And we think that we're worthy. And what this is saying here is that the proper view is that we cannot earn God's worthiness. A lot of people think that they're worthy because of the money they make or the status they have in society or this and that, their name or who they know. But this centurion was a powerful person, a wealthy person. And the key is he recognizes how unworthy he is and how worthy God is. See, a lot of times when we make a mistake, and I've said this before in my teachings, we run the risk sometimes of overestimating ourselves and underestimating God. And what that does is that gives us a wrong view of who God is and gives us a wrong view of who we are. But this centurion, a Gentile, who doesn't really know Jesus that well, he's known what he has heard, knows that he is not worthy, but somebody greater, like named Jesus, is much greater than he is. And he doesn't, he pales in comparison to who Jesus is. That's what we have to understand. When we go before God, when we go before Jesus, we go on our knees, we go as an unworthy servant, and we pale in comparison to who Jesus is and to who God is. And that pleases God. That we'll see later, that allows God to marvel. It gives him, it's like he praises that type of attitude. So here we have, he says, therefore, he said, I do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. I just love that. A lot of commentators said, well, he didn't want him to come under his roof because he was a Gentile and Jesus was a Jew. And for Jesus to be a Jew to come into a Gentile's house meant that he would be defiled and considered unclean. But you got to remember, if you know anything about Jesus, he didn't play by those rules. He didn't play by those traditions. He was coming to debunk that. And it's a passage in here that's going to tell us, the next one, in fact, on why that's not true. He says, therefore, I did not presume to come to you. See, if he felt that Jesus was going to be unclean, then the centurion, if he was a proselyte or a God-fearer, would have come to Jesus. But he says, I am so worthy that you cannot come, and you should not come to my house, and I'm not even worthy to come to you. That's what he's saying. And look at his faith. And that's humility. I'm going to tell you, this title is called Humble Faith. That's humility. When you understand where you stand with the all-powerful, mighty God. God doesn't owe you anything. Anything that he gives is through his grace and mercy. Anything. Look what he says. But say the word and let my servant be healed. Great act of faith. Let me share something with you. A commentator said this, and I fully agree. Great insight on this commentary. Darrell Bach said this. This centurion probably had never seen or met Jesus before, because earlier it says, heard about Jesus. In this passage here, he's sending messengers to Jesus. He's staying at the bedside of his trusted and beloved servant. So he's never seen Jesus, never talked with Jesus, but yet he displays this tremendous amount of faith. And what Luke is trying to tell his readers of that day is that just because Jesus is not there physically with you, doesn't mean he will not answer your prayer or cannot answer your prayer. He does not have to be there to answer your prayer. And so he says here, but say the word, act of faith. You don't have to be here. I don't have to be in your presence. You don't have to lay your hands on the servant, but say the word and let my servant be healed. What amazing faith. You don't have to travel. You don't have to be present. All you have to do is speak it. And he gives the reason why he feels that way. Now this passage here in verse 8, it goes from lesser to greater or minor to major. This is the argument that he's using, and watch how he says it. For I too am a man set under authority. This centurion was a man, had 100 people under him. He understood authority. He understood commands. He understood how much respect that he had, how people would do what he asked them to do. I am a man set under authority with soldiers under me. I say to one, go, and he goes. I say to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. And what is he saying here? Because the response is, when Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him. What this centurion is saying is that in my humble existence, in my little space in this world, I have people under me that do what I say. I have authority. If I say go here, they go. If I say come here, they do that. If I say do this, do that, they'll do all that. You are greater than I. You have more authority than I. You are more powerful than I. Whatever forces you have to command or whatever you have to say to someone to do, they will do. Just like I have command over my soldiers, you have command over the healing forces, whatever they are out there to heal this servant. I know you do, and I recognize your authority. If I can do this minor thing, you can do this major thing. If I have this, I can do this less of a thing, how much more can you do this great of a thing? So he's displaying a tremendous amount of faith in Jesus, someone who's never met, who's never seen. He has heard about what he has said and done, and he's displayed a tremendous amount of faith. He's humbled himself. I am not worthy. He's displayed a faith that I don't have to be there. All you have to do is say a word. You can be 20, 30 miles away, and you will heal this servant. Just because you have the authority and the power and the ability to command itself. Tremendous amount of faith. And this type of faith that he displays, it pleases Jesus. The Bible says he marveled at him. He surprised him. He became emotional about it. He liked what he said. He loved the example that was set. And he says, and so much so, he said, and turning to the crowd, there was a crowd following him. He liked what these friends said, that the centurion had said, the message he communicated. He turned to a crowd to use this centurion's faith as an example. See, there's tension in this passage. The overall tension in this passage, the couple of big pictures is this. The centurion's faith is a type of faith that pleases God versus the Jewish faith, which are God's people. Their type of, or their lack of faith, displeases God. The faith of the centurion marvels God, Jesus, pleases him. Does our personal faith, does God marvel at our personal faith? Do we believe God at his word? That's the tension that's coming here. That's the tension. We know that because he turns to the crowd that follows him and says, I tell you, even in Israel, I have found no such faith. The people that are supposed to believe, are supposed to have faith, do not have the faith that you have. But you, a Gentile, who's not supposed to have that type of faith, who's not supposed to know me, has displayed greater faith than the people of Israel. And we have to ask ourselves, do we have that type of faith where we can believe Jesus, believe God at his word? Can we truly believe him? And the Bible says this, and when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. Matthew says, and when the servant believed, became saved, his servant was healed immediately. And this says here, when they went back, they found the well. When that centurion said what he said, bam, that servant was healed, doing well. It's amazing. This is a passage about faith. It's an example of what type of humble faith we should have. We should never go to God in arrogance, boasting in what we've done for the Lord. We should come, God, it pleases God when we come with a humble spirit, knowing who we are in comparison to a mighty and holy God. That means coming on our knees, coming with our heads bowed, coming at the mercy of God, knowing that whatever God gives us or answers prayer is solely because of his grace. And what we find here is that this centurion's faith is rewarded, not because he earned it, but because of God's grace. And when we come to God the right way, we access the grace of God, and God will answer our prayer. I want to recap what humble faith is. I kind of wrote some notes here. I want to say humble faith is rewarded by God's grace. This is a type of faith that Jesus is looking for. Humble faith is knowing who you are in comparison to who Jesus is. It's to Jesus' greatness, his authority, his powerfulness, that we are completely dependent upon him for everything. In every aspect of our life, we ought to trust him in every aspect of our life. Everything that we have, everything that's good that happens to us is because of God himself, not because of who we are. And then we learn that no matter what we face in life or death, illness, suffering, whatever it is, the God that we serve is able to heal. The God that we serve is able to answer prayer. The God that we serve is able to get us out of whatever situation that we're facing. Humble faith pleases God. Humble faith recognizes God for who he is, the maker of heaven and earth, the God Almighty, the healer and preserver of life, the giver of eternal life. May God bless you. If this lesson has been a blessing to you, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends and your family. I do this every week. I'll see you on next Wednesday. May God bless you until we see you.